Hello, hello. If this is your first time watching, Texas Investments is an investment club based in Dallas, Texas. An investment club is a group of individuals who pool their money together to make investments in the stock market. Currently, we are invested only in mega cap stocks who have been in business for 10 years or more and who pay a dividend of more than 2% a year. Usually, I discuss the earnings calls during the portfolio update every month for the members of the club. But what happens is I read the earnings call or listen to the earnings call, and it may be weeks or a month before I do the portfolio update. And then I have to go back and refresh myself. So I figured that it'll be a little easier and maybe even value added to do just the earnings call summaries separately. It'll allow me to be a bit more granular, and it'll be fresher on my mind to do it. So HP just came out today. Well, I don't know if it came out today, but I got the notification today, so I went through that. And so it did miss the revenue estimate, and so I think that impacted the stock price a little bit. I haven't paid much attention to the stock price over the last couple of days. It's been pretty much flat. But either way, they did beat on the earnings per share. They said that it had a lot to do with them ending a lot of discounts and sales and things of that nature. As far as the revenue goes, the excuse was COVID, of course, and that their supply chain has come under a lot of pressure, specifically in Southeast Asia, where there's a lot of factory and plant closings and things of that nature. So they can't actually make the product needed to sell. They did state that the backlog, which is orders that have not been filled yet, has constantly increased. So it was high last quarter, and it was even higher this quarter. So they do expect the revenue to come back once they get the supply chain under control. Typically, during these earnings calls, the analysts uh, they ask decent questions, but sometimes you want them to get a bit more mean about it. And this is one of the first times that I've read an earnings call where an analyst got a little mean, which was really cool, and he really hammered on the CEO concerning that issue with PC sales. So let me quickly go through this thing and get to so the what really drove the revenue and profit was the printing, right? The ink and the printers. As far as the computers go, not great at all. Not great at all. And so the analysts really hammered home the idea of the PCs being basically a failing product. That the PC demand has hit something of a peak, and the CEO kind of fired back and talked about changing the way that they source materials to produce these PCs as a way to correct the situation. But again, I think it's going to be always something there about the PC market. Many people have just cell phones. Right now we're dealing with COVID, so we have a lot of people working from home, blah, blah, blah. And so PC sales are up. You have kids that have laptops and stuff like that for schoolwork. So those sales are coming up. But whether or not we'll see, a desktop laptop in every home, I don't know if that trend is going to increase or if it's going to just remain flat, right? And then as phones become more and more powerful, will we see that trend decrease? Will people move more to phones than laptops and desktops. On the commercial side, businesses, of course, they're going to always use, well, I shouldn't say always, but businesses are going to continue to use desktops and workstations and things of that nature. But again, 10, 20 years from now, who knows where that trend will go. And so the question was concerning just the peak demand of PCs. And the CEO says that with the current backlog, he is confident that demand will continue to increase, and that once they figure out the supply situation, they'll be able to sell more PCs and increase revenue. The other thing that was mentioned was specifically the areas in which they saw the biggest drop off. The United States was actually up about 12% for the year as far as PC revenue goes, but it was Asia and Europe that saw declines. South Asia, more specifically. The other thing that I want to get to on here. Oh yeah, they talked about debt, which was an issue as well. So currently they are targeting their earnings to debt to be about 1.5 to 2. Okay, so what that means is you have earnings at the top divided by debt at the bottom, and they want the debt to be, how do I say this? Twice as low. I don't know how to say that, but they want it to be 2, right? So you have, debt divided by earnings. Okay, I'm sorry. So debt divided by earnings. So earnings would be half of what debt is what they're trying to get to. They're not quite there yet. And so that's something to keep an eye on. There was one other thing, and I think passed it or missed it. Oh, yeah. So cash flow was kind of a thing. So they're like many companies, that they tout the cash, the share buyback, right? Where they buy shares, and they tout that. The issue that I have though is that currently they have $1 billion in cash, right, from operations, but they're spending 1.7 billion in dividends and share repurchases. I've always had an issue with that because as a shareholder, I want that money, and I don't believe that those share repurchases is actually putting money in my pocket. Let the market keep the stock price where it is. Let the market determine what the share price is. If you have cash laying around that you just can't do anything else with, give the money back to the shareholders in forms of special dividends, not share repurchases. That's my personal opinion. But it is something to keep an eye on, though, because you can't spend more cash than what you're bringing in on share repurchases. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Another thing that was mentioned is there are new acquisitions, one being HyperX, which is gaming peripherals, whether it's keyboards, headsets, I'm assuming monitors. Is something that they're trying to get into, just diversify the company. I don't know anything about HyperX. I have seen these colored keyboards, but I don't know if that's proprietary, if that's a proprietary product, or if that's just something anyone can sell, right? So I don't know how creative this HyperX acquisition will be. Maybe it's just, a couple extra coins in the pocket at this point. The other one that was kind of interesting is Teradici. Teradici, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, is a remote desktop software, which looks like is primarily for Apple. And so I don't know a lot about Mac. I use PC for everything. and I'm able to remote into my PC no problem. I'm not sure what issues, if any, there are with remoting into a Mac. Maybe this company is dealing with remote desktops on a larger scale, and so maybe that causes issues. I don't know, but I think it's a really interesting acquisition. Again, I don't know where this will go or what HP intends on doing with it, but it's kind of a cool thing to look at. See, was there anything else? Oh, yeah, I did want to talk about the miss and the beats. So what I found is just a quick 2-year or 3-year illustration of when they beat analyst estimates and when they didn't beat analyst estimates, because it's going to have a lot to do with the share price. When they record a beat, the share price usually goes up. When they miss, the share price usually comes down. And so we can see the EPS, which is earnings per share estimate here on the left, which, by the way, share repurchases help increase the earnings per share. And so we see over the last 3 years, they have consistently beat the analyst estimates, and analysts are using those fundamental numbers as far as sales and expenses and things of that nature to try to estimate what the earnings per share will be. And HP has consistently beat that. Whether or not that has to do with share repurchases, I don't know, but you would think that if they consistently beat those estimates, that the analysts will increase their estimates over time to make it harder and harder for HP to beat those estimates. But for the last 3 years, that has not been seen. As far as revenue goes, they have missed revenue estimates, specifically this quarter, which we talked about, but past few quarters as well, which I have to assume has a little bit to do with, again, seasonality and also the trend in PCs. Like I said, it's a big question looming around the industry on just where it is. I've always had a desktop, but I know many people that don't have desktops. They have maybe a laptop, definitely a smartphone, but desktops, I think, are decreasing in trend on the consumer side. And so I imagine that the revenue misses is probably surrounding that. One of the things I did want to mention just real quick, the CEO did say that they are using a new method to source their material to produce these PCs. And specifically, what they were doing in the past was they were outsourcing to other companies, right, to source this material. And so now they're looking at going directly to the suppliers themselves versus outsourcing the management of that. So that's it, HP. There's a couple more that I need to get to, and those will be in the next video.